welcome to Paso del Norte Community Foundation's Facebook page for another live Q&A. I'm Mika Short, Vice President of Development, here today to speak with some of our community partners about the ways in which they are helping to address the community's needs during COVID-19 through giving and other means. Today's guests are Elizabeth O'Hara from Texas Gas Service and Jerry Romero from Wells Fargo Bank. Jerry's experiencing some technical difficulties, but we're hoping that he'll join in as soon as he's able. So thank you, Liz, for joining us this Cinco de Mayo. We encourage our viewers to submit questions early in the event. Discussion runs long, so we can jump right into your questions after these initial questions are answered. We'll answer as many of your questions as possible during the live session. We hope our viewers log on to epcovid19.org, the El Paso Online COVID-19 Information Hub that was created by our sister organization, Paso del Norte Health Foundation, to provide the community with valuable resources to help get through the current global health crisis. There are links and other free resources for parents. So let's jump into some of these questions. So Liz, Texas Gas Service was interested in executing an immediate response to the community's COVID-19 needs. How did the company's specific allocation towards supplies for homeless shelters meet that goal?
You know, it was very early on in March where the One Gas Foundation Executive Director, Robert Bad, reached out to us and said, we're anticipating there's going to be great need. Do you have a good gauge yet of what we're looking at? And, you know, in those early days of March, where every day it seemed like the news was changing and it was getting a little bit more of a pinch and a little bit more of a pinch, it was hard to determine really what was going to be the case. But what I found really in speaking with you and being able to say, okay, you all are a fiduciary for this community, and what are you hearing? You work with so many of the local nonprofits. How can we come in and be supportive of that? To be able to hear that there were a number of needs, and at that point, really what we were honing in on was food bank assistance, and then what needed to be done to help our homeless population. Certainly as we were starting to talk about what was then this new term of social distancing, we realized that that was really going to create some stressors on that population. And so at that point, we were talking with you all about how best we could serve. And really what that came down to was being able to look at what needed to be done to create a safe and healthy environment. And it came down to cleaning supplies, which at that point, you know, we kind of had already seen that first wave of cleaning supplies kind of flying off the shelves. And then being able to say, excuse me, if we can provide funding for this, do you have access? That was really important. Could we immediately deploy those funds? And being able to do that with your assistance is really what made such a huge difference, I think, in this community.
Awesome.
And it looks like Jerry was able to join us now.
Yes. Hi, Jerry. Thank you so much for logging on and participating with us. I'm glad you resolved your technical issues. Are you there, Jerry? No. Okay.
No, not yet. Looks like he's frozen.
Okay, so we'll wait to get him totally connected. I'll ask you another question, Liz.
Sure.
So you work for a company that employs essential workers and that are known for employee volunteerism and engagement. So what does your contribution of $10,000 to the COVID-19 fund mean to you as an employee and to your colleagues?
I think it really just kind of instills in us and reinforces in us that sense of community pride. So many of our workers have continued to work as they always have. You know, our CEO, Pierce Norton, recently did a broadcast for all of us, and we were talking about the anticipation of municipalities beginning to get back to work. And Pierce made a really good point and said, you know what? We were always at work. We never stopped working. And I think that that's a really important point. Our folks, who many of your viewers today are going to recognize, not necessarily people in my position who are working in offices, but people who were wearing the denim shirts and the steel-toed boots. I mean, those folks, the ones who were taking your phone calls if you need help, they all continue to work. Now, did our contact center folks then transition into a work at home situation? They did. And their call volume continued to be very strong. And what we were able to see is that the ratings, if you will, when you take surveys afterward, were really strong. So even at a point of crisis, Texas Gas Service employees continued to rise to the occasion and display the professionalism that they always have. So that in turn, being able to know that their company, the One Gas parent company, and through its foundation, was then able to support the community that is beloved by these employees means a lot to them. And the feedback on that has been very positive.
Wonderful. Okay, so it does look like Jerry is with us now. Hi, Jerry. Thank you for making time to participate in this Facebook Live with us.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
We gotcha. So Liz has already answered 2 questions, so the next question I pose will go to you. So why did Wells Fargo decide to partner with the Bustle the Norte Community Foundation and make a donation to the COVID-19 response fund? You were actually the very first person to reach out to me about partnering. So Wells Fargo must have been really on top of it when you asked if we had a fund and if there was something that you could do to support. So just wanted to hear a little bit about why you decided to partner with us to make that donation to the fund.
One of the first things that came to mind when I communicated with you was the fact that we had worked collaboratively on the issue of the August 3rd fund that you all had established. In doing so, Wells Fargo kind of stepped up to the plate and said, we need to do something with this COVID-19. And these were discussions prior to this becoming the pandemic that it is today. So we came up with a very modest amount of $6.5 million that was going to be used to support COVID activities across the country. And you were one of the first organizations I thought of because we worked together collaboratively with other organizations as well. So you were one of the few organizations in the United States that received funding of the initial $6.5 million. So it was very important for us to be in front of this. It wasn't about trying to catch up. It was about what can we do now, knowing that there's going to be such need in this community. And Wells Fargo has always been a very strong supporter in regards to identifying what we can do as an organization to support community initiatives that are important not just to us, but important to the overall community as a whole.
Okay, well, we thank you for that partnership. I'm going to ask you another question, Jerry, and then Liz, if you want to respond to the same question. So with
Sure.
our community facing so many critical needs, and with Wells Fargo and Texas Gas being those companies that are asked over and over again for support, how did you and your companies prioritize giving, knowing that there's so many needs and there's not possible to fund all the requests that you receive? So how did you prioritize the pool of assets that you had?
So as you know, we changed the way we did giving in 2020. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we changed the way we did giving in 2020 prior to this pandemic hitting. So as part of our strategic plan, we had gone from just giving grants to whichever nonprofit applied to really being strategic about where we wanted the monies to go in our communities. We felt it was very important to ensure that we were impacting individuals that really had the need, individuals that never owned a home, individuals that don't understand the financial health and how that's going to impact them long term as far as their well-being, their wealth, and so on. And then, of course, small businesses. We kept those 3 new pillars as we moved into this COVID phase, into this pandemic phase, understanding that we had to do something on a much larger scale. So what the corporation decided to do was to really refocus all of our existing contributions budgets in all our local communities to ensure that we were focused on COVID-19 activities that were going to support those 3 pillars, which were housing, small business, and financial health. Did that mean that you had to have a fund specific to COVID-19 where you were going to be working with the first responders or issuing masks or providing ventilators? No. Everything that we've done since then has really been around the need in the community. As you well know, the initial $75,000 that was provided to PDN, 50,000 of that was designated for El Paso, and then 25,000 was designated to the Rio Grande Valley. We understood that we will be partnering with other well-known organizations in this community, and we felt it was important to support those types of efforts. So we took the same initiative going forward with our existing local contributions budget and identifying organizations that we had supported in the past, and really try to visit with them and talk to them about how we could continue funding for them, understanding that COVID-19 was going to impact them not necessarily because they were going to close or because they were going to get less funding, but because there was going to be more need and more services requested from the community. So we've done everything we can to expedite the process. We've shortened up our application. Our turnaround period has been dramatically reduced from what it used to be. And that was standard. I mean, most people, when you submit an application for a grant, it was a good 6 to 8 week process. If you think about it, now we've been in this COVID-19 for a little under 2 months, and we've already expended close to $500,000 of our contributions budget on grants to local nonprofits.
Well, Wells Fargo has always been a great supporter, so thank you very much for that. So Liz, I'll repeat the question just to make
Sure.
So with our community facing so many critical needs, how did you and One Gas, Texas Gas Service, prioritize giving for COVID-19 response?
Sure. For us, it really was about kind of a two-pronged approach. What did we need to do for relief? And then what did we need to consider for recovery? Knowing that at some point, this would not be the crisis that we were seeing in mid-March. We would have a lull, and then we would, look at economic recovery and what that would mean in our community. And so for us, it was a couple of things, really where was the human touch needed? What was the immediate relief that was needed? And if we deployed funds, could the organization that we were working with immediately act on that? What were going to be the metrics of success? Would they be able to expend that money immediately and get that into the community? So it really became a swiftness of the organization, the strength of that organization to be able to deploy those funds, to track those funds, and then starting to look at what do we need to do in 6 weeks? What do we need to do in 90 days? What does it look like 6 months from now? And starting to have those conversations. So being able to work with an organization that kind of had that framework, if you will, to be able to start having those conversations. Those were the conversations that were taking place between Texas Gas Service and One Gas, our parent company.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I think your response leads into the next question, because there is so much that we need to look at in terms of recovery moving forward. So Liz, I'm going to pose this to you first. What else is your organization doing to help its 265,000 Texas Gas Service customers and the community in its response to COVID-19? I know I've seen some food that has been given out at the food bank. So aside and apart from the gift that you gave us of $10,000 for homeless shelters, you're still doing a lot of other things. So can you elaborate on some of that?
Sure. There's also been a donation that was given to the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. And that actually had come from a different ask. And so those funds were getting ready to be deployed. And then, of course, this crisis hit. And so that was immediately turned into the purchasing of food for the food bank. And so that has happened now. But I think it's really important to point out that, Texas Gas Service also did a suspension of disconnects for those people who were suddenly faced with an unclear and uncertain financial future. And so we were able to do that. That runs through next week, May 15th. And then, of course, we continue to promote the contributions that we have always done with our Share the Warmth program, which is operated through Project Bravo. And that also helps people who need help with their utility.
Well, Jerry, we're running out of time, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to answer that question, because I know that you have also awarded several grants to different community partners in response to COVID-19. So do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Sure. Very, very similar to what Texas Gas was doing. We understand we're a business that supports a lot of customers in this community, but more importantly, we're an industry that relies on ensuring that customers have access to their funds and to the ability to be able to continue to do what they're doing around their finances. But we also understand that there was a whole bunch of different needs that we ourselves could not meet. So we had to make sure that we were in touch with our community partners, our nonprofit groups, so that we would be able to continue to fund them so that they would be able to provide those necessary services and programs to those in the most need. Project Bravo, as Liz mentioned, is another organization that we funded. We funded individual grant requests to Project Vida. We funded grant requests to collaborative effort between three nonprofits in El Paso to support the nursing programs so that they could get these nurses through the program as quickly as possible and into the workforce as quickly as possible. It really is kind of a bucket approach where you communicate, you collaborate, and you work together with these nonprofit groups across our community to ensure that we're providing the necessary funding from our respect to these different organizations to ensure they can continue to provide their services and their programs to those in the most with the most need.
Awesome. Well, I can't tell if there are any questions from our viewers. This is my first time doing a Facebook Live moderation, so I hope there have been some questions asked, but I can't see them to know that they're there. So I apologize for that. But I did want to mention that Texas Gas Service through the One Gas Foundation donated $10,000 to our El Paso COVID-19 Response Fund, and that the Wells Fargo Foundation generously donated $50,000 to El Paso COVID-19 Response Fund. And as Jerry pointed out, we also did receive $25,000 that's being deployed in the Rio Grande Valley to their United Way and to their food bank as well. So the El Paso COVID-19 Response Fund was created in partnership with the United Way of El Paso County to support nonprofit organizations serving the most vulnerable in our community, including the homeless, the elderly, and the food insecure. So those funds that we received from Wells Fargo and Texas Gas Service have already been dispersed, and I'm sure that the recipients are using those supplies and the funding that they've received to the best of their ability to serve their growing number of clients with less and less resources that they're seeing right now because of fewer donations and fewer volunteers available to contribute on site. So I just wanted to wrap this up and thank you, Liz, for all of your leadership at Texas Gas Service and for the One Gas Foundation's incredible continued support in the community. And thank you, Jerry, for participating, for your leadership, and for all that you're doing to deploy those resources that Wells Fargo has designated for COVID-19 funding. So I think we're going to wrap this Facebook Live up, and we'll see you guys all next time.